This is CNN Breaking News.
Well, we have this breaking news just into CNN. Liberty Island in New York City is being evacuated now because of a person trying to climb the Statue of Liberty. You're looking at a live picture there now of the statue, and joining me live is CNN's Bryn Gingras from New York. Bryn, what are we learning from police? How far up the statue? Do we have any idea who this person is?
Yeah, Jim, you know, this happened a little bit earlier today. There was actually a total of 8 people that were in protest at one point holding up a huge sign that said abolish ICE. It was a total of 8 people. 7 of those people are already under arrest. But now as you look at this video, you can see in the corner of that green section, the base of the Statue of Liberty is one person holding some sort of sign, and at a little bit lower than them, all those heads you see there, that is NYPD personnel. Specifically the emergency services unit. We have 3 different units, I'm told, on the scene, and those are those highly trained tactical units that are working to get that 8th person down, who we're told is a woman who was part of this protest. And I would imagine at this point, I'm trying to get this confirmed, I would imagine the hostage negotiation team would be a part of this. Those are the people that are skilled to sort of talk to people to get them to come down in situations like this, like a protest. So I wish I could answer to you, and we can find that out certainly, the base to where this person is, how far above ground we're talking here. But it's a pretty significant climb that this person has made already. Again, 7 people already climbed a bit of the Statue of Liberty in their protest, holding up this sign, and then this 8th person went even further. As you already mentioned, Jim, the Liberty Island has been evacuated. I mean, this is a huge section, of course, of the harbor here in New York City where the Statue of Liberty sits. Huge tourist area, especially when it's the 4th of July. So this is a big deal. We know there are harbor units as well right around the Statue of Liberty, but a lot of personnel there on the scene trying to get this 8th person either to come down or probably at this point trying to figure out how they're going to get up there and arrest this 8th person, Jim.
Bryn Gingras, thank you very much. And there you have it. This is a protest on July 4th at the Statue of Liberty, which with a poem which reads in part, "Give us your tired and poor," and that protest about immigration, ICE, family separation, etc. I want to bring in Phil Mudd, who, of course, worked in counterterrorism for the FBI and the CIA. You know New York City very well. How seriously would police and authorities approach a situation like this there, particularly on a holiday? A number of the members of the public would be visiting the statue as well.
Look, if you're a member of the public, you step back and say, this is a protest that fits in the context of what we've seen in the United States for the past week or two. As a counterterrorism professional, you can't make that assumption. Assumptions will kill you. Right. There's a couple of characteristics you look at in this case. We have not only one person, multiple people. The first is an immediate question. What do they have on their persons? What do they bring onto the island? Do they bring anything on that's a threat to the people around the island? Obviously, you have a question about when you're going to get access to the person up on the monument. Are there other individuals beyond the immediate circle who are involved in this? And then there's a secondary question. I'm sure the investigators will spend the afternoon taking off July 4th to investigate intent. What were they trying to do? How can we reassure ourselves of one of the toughest things in the intelligence business, that is the negative? How can we be guaranteed that they didn't intend to do harm to anybody? So it looks like a protest. I, as now a member of the public for the past 8 years, would say it's a protest. You can't make that assumption if you're an investigator. If
you're just joining us now, you're looking at live pictures of the Statue of Liberty in New York. This, the lower portion there's a wider shot. Liberty Island has been closed down. A number of people, it appears, have climbed the base of the statue on this July 4th. Our reporter in New York saying that it appears to be a protest related to ICE, immigration, etc. But Phil Mudd, our CNN terrorism and national security analyst, you're saying that the authorities are not going to eliminate any possibility here. They want to have an abundance of caution to make sure there aren't any other ill intents.
Sure. I mean, in the 17 years post 9/11, I realize this has no sort of bearing on post 9/11. It doesn't look like a terrorist attack. You go into these situations saying, how can we be reassured that the individuals involved in this don't have something like a backpack device? I doubt they do. But again, there's a big difference between what you think and what you know. Being reassured over the course of hours that there's nothing they carried on that island that doesn't threaten an individual, that's tough to do. And in the meantime, you can't look around and say, we're just going to take a risk that these people are benign, that they say they're benign. In the meantime, you've got to disrupt the vacation plans of all the people on the island and say, we've got to figure out what we've got our hands on here. It's going to take a little while.
Well, we should say that it is our information at this point. No evidence of terrorism, but of course necessary to exercise an abundance of caution there. Thanks very much to Phil Mudd. We're going to keep an eye on this breaking news story that's developing right now. And as we do, you can see there now what appears to be one of the protesters, and I believe on the left there, a police officer who's climbed up. You can see the ladder there on the left that the officer appears to have used. One of the protesters there kind of sitting, looking kind of relaxed, like they're not in any sort of rush to get off there. Bryn Gingras joining us back again from New York. You're learning new details.
Yeah, Jim, I'm learning from sources there who are familiar with this situation, with the scene, that what officers have to do is build a rope rescue system. So they're not going to wait to try to coax this person down at this point. They're actually going to build some sort of system that will get officers to their level and then make that arrest. And then what I'm learning is after that arrest is made or after they are detained, so you're seeing those officers sort of build this contraption. I know it looks like a ladder, but you see this other officer that's sort of at the base there at the green point. This is like, I guess, the rope rescue system that they're going to have to build to actually put this person in custody. And then what they'll do typically is almost piggyback them or have them in handcuffs and lead them down safely. What I'm told then from there is this person will be taken on a boat. As I told you, Hudson, or the water unit, harbor unit of the NYPD is there. They're going to put this person on that boat and bring them directly to most likely the Staten Island ferry terminal on the Manhattan side to put them under arrest.
Okay.
So you can see
Bryn,
this person. Yeah, go ahead.
Bryn, as we're watching here, it is one protester who's there. I know there was some talk of maybe there were multiple. To our knowledge, there's one person, and the initial indications are that this is a protest. How do we know that?
Well, earlier today, about 3:15 is when NYPD got this initial call. There was a total of 8 protesters who were holding up a sign that said "Abolish ICE."
Okay.
7 arrests were made. This one other person climbed further. So that's who officers are worried about getting at this point down to safety and then making the 8th arrest. So there was a total of 8, but this is the final one that they have to put under arrest once they safely can get to her.
I get it. So you're seeing there, in effect, as Bryn was explaining, the final remaining protester. There were a number there before. They released a banner talking about abolishing ICE, that is the immigration service that's been so involved in these immigration issues, arrests, deportations, etc. Now the police, they're setting up a device to safely get the final protester down. We're going to keep an eye on this story going forward. I'll just go back to Phil now. So based on what we heard there, so you've got a final protester, it appears, and there seems like the focus now, Phil, is getting that person off there safely, right? Especially if they don't want to come down.
Not quite yet. There's a couple focuses here. I'm not going to assume that's the final protester. When I go into that conversation, or when the NYPD goes into a conversation with the group that's there, the first immediate question is, you've got a criminal event. You've got to potentially talk to them about what they were thinking about going into this. But my first question would be, are you part of a group that's planning something broader across New York City? You can't guarantee that today or tomorrow or next week that they haven't thought about further protests that would disrupt life in New York City. So it's not just resolving what happened at Liberty Island. It's figuring out if something else is afoot here.
Understood. Abundance of caution, always important. We're going to continue to follow this story. We're going to take a short break now. More details on this unfolding story when we come back. We're back now with the breaking news that we are following live. This is a live picture of the Statue of Liberty on the 4th of July. A protester has climbed up to the base there. You can see that about the center of the screen. Those figures on the left side, those are police officers who are developing some sort of system of ladders and ropes to evacuate that protester. Liberty Island, which surrounds the Statue of Liberty, has already been evacuated of the many tourists and visitors who've been there today on the July 4th holiday. CNN's Bryn Gingras, she's been following this story from New York. Bryn, I understand you have new details. Hi, Bryn, do you hear Jim?
Jim, can you hear me?
I hear you now. So tell us what's the latest you're learning.
Yeah, we're learning that NYPD hostage negotiators are now headed to the scene, trying to coax this person. Hopefully that maybe the emergency services unit there is doing a good job of coaxing.
He looks to be reaching over now.
Right.
Oh, she look maybe even grabbing their hand. Oh no, she took some water. It looks like she took a bottle of water.
Okay, took some
took
water.
a bottle of water from the officer.
Right. So these on the scene, what you're looking at right now, are emergency service unit officers. These are these highly trained tactical officers. They respond to suicide jumpers on bridges. I mean, these guys are incredibly well equipped to handle these situations, and again, highly trained. So what that person is likely doing is talking to this person, trying to get them to connect with them so they can get this person down to safety. But as I said, in addition to that, we know that hostage negotiation teams are headed there as well, and those people are specifically trained, obviously, to talk to these people out of these situations to get this person down. But these, again, ESU members, what they're doing, I'm told through a source, is they're building a system of pulleys, of ropes. You can see the ladder there, but you can also see that the officers really don't have great access to this person. So they're right now constructing, I'm told, a ladder system, a pulley system that they can get more officers up there and probably closer to this person in order to get them down to safety. Because as we've been witnessing, as officers get a little bit closer, this person sort of makes her way or his way,
right.
We think it's a woman, makes her way around the Statue of Liberty. So that's why officers aren't going further up there, if you can imagine how risky this is for them right now as well. So that's all underway right now as they continue to work on the situation that's been going on for about an hour and 15 minutes, Jim.
It also looks like, Bryn, and I know that, as you said, there's no hostage here, but a negotiator
Correct.
might be involved. It looks like the officer closest to the protester is conversing with her, has just given her a bottle of water. I mean, I assume that's part of the process to kind of establish contact so that you can get some trust and maybe get her safely. And it's great that we're pulling out now, because you see that there's a lot of distance you can fall if things don't go well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's a good vantage point there as well, because it shows you how clear Liberty Island is, which you can imagine wouldn't be that clear on a day like today, Independence Day. It's usually packed with tourists, but it has been evacuated. But yes, those people are trained to have these conversations, and yes, no hostage, but they deal with people who are suicidal. In this case, it seems to be a protester. So they're trained, but again, the hostage negotiation team, they are even more trained in these situations. So that's really more just reinforcement that's on its way to help these ESU officers try to get her down.
We have Phil Mudd here as well, who longtime CIA and also FBI, works in counterterrorism. But as you look at this unfold here now, how difficult is it to resolve something like this? I mean, clearly for the protester, and if you're just joining us now, earlier in the day, this person was joined by 7 or 8 others, and they unfurled a banner talking about abolishing ICE. The agency deals with a lot of enforcement of the immigration laws. So a protest on July 4th at the Statue of Liberty. I imagine the protester wants to keep the attention of the world on themselves, so does not have an incentive to get off quickly. So how do you resolve something like this?
Well, there's a couple things going on here. Look, excuse me, stepping back, if you look at the video, you know why it's difficult to resolve this. This is going to be resolved peacefully. The question is about the safety of the officers and the individual involved. If you're at ground level here, you could resolve this now. But despite the frustration with this individual, you can't afford to risk their life or their health. So they're going to sit there and be very cautious. The secondary issue that's going to take hours to resolve is I got to go back to my old life and say, I need some identification here, because that is a name, because I want to know things like social media profile, what this person has said in the past. I mentioned a moment ago. Does that give me an indication about whether they're part of a group, whether they're planning something further? This issue is going to be resolved quickly. My question would be, is there a secondary issue with some affiliated group that we're going to see later today or tomorrow or something? I doubt it, but you can't believe that until you prove it.
Sure. Well, we're going to continue to monitor the breaking news here. There is Liberty Island on July 4th, closed off to visitors, a protester there, police negotiating with that protester, trying to get them down safely. We will bring you any updates as they happen. We're back now with the breaking news. You are looking at live pictures of Liberty Island in New York City. It has been evacuated, the site, of course, of the Statue of Liberty. This after a protester climbed the statue. That protester still there, standing her ground. The NYPD and U.S. Park Police are on the scene. They have constructed a system there to try to get her down safely. CNN's Bryn Gingrash, she's been following the story. Bryn, what's the latest you're hearing?
Yeah, standing her ground, Jim, and being very daring. As you can see, she keeps moving around the base of the Statue of Liberty, which we know is 150 feet above the water there. So what you're seeing right here are live pictures. 3 of those police officers that you can see, those are members of the Emergency Services Unit of the NYPD. Those are highly trained, highly skilled officers who are right now in a harness system with each other and onto that ladder and are trying to coax that woman to get closer to them so they can actually put a harness on her and get her down to safety. Now, this is the 8th person, a part of a protest that happened earlier today. Police actually got a call about 3:15 of protesters at the foot of the Statue of Liberty holding up a sign that said "Abolish ICE." 7 of those people were put under arrest, and then this 8th person climbed higher. You could see her holding a sign there as well. We know that Liberty Island, where the Statue of Liberty is, has been evacuated on the 4th of July. You can imagine how that is in Manhattan. This would have been a very busy day for tourists and others. We also know that a hostage negotiation team with the NYPD is right now en route to that area to help those ESU members to try to coax her to come down safely. Jim.
Thanks very much, Bryn Gingras. We'll continue to follow that story. Now to our world lead.
But first, let's get more on the breaking news out of New York. CNN national correspondent Bryn Gingras is in New York working the story for us. Bryn, this looks like a very dangerous situation unfolding up there on the Statue of Liberty, at least for this one protester.
Yeah, that's right, Jim. I mean, this is a protester standing her ground and being daring at the same time. We've seen her sort of walking back and forth around the foot of the Statue of Liberty there, which we estimate is about 150 feet above the water. And as you're looking at live pictures over the harbor there, you can see 3 NYPD officers. Those are emergency service unit officers. Those are highly trained, highly skilled officers that really do multiple practices. We've been on some of them with them for these type of situations. That they are on a ladder and also connected to each other through harnesses. And what they're doing right now is trying to de-escalate the situation, trying to talk to this protester to try to get her to come closer to them so they could put a harness on her and safely get her down. We know that this call came in about a protest at about 3:15 this afternoon. So the standoff going on for almost 2 hours now. It was a total of 8 protesters who at one point, they weren't that high up. They were further down where you're seeing those other people standing, and they were holding a sign that said "Abolish ICE." Police were able to put 7 of them under arrest, but then this 8th person climbed to the foot of the Statue of Liberty there, where you're seeing her continue to be in a standoff. We also know that NYPD's hostage negotiation team, they are en route. They should be almost there at this point to assist these ESU officers. And what they're doing, even as we speak, is trying to get sort of background on these protesters, background on this person, so that when they can get there, they can be in the ear of one of those officers who's having direct communications with this protester. We've seen these officers hand her a bottle of water because you can imagine how hot it is right now. But they're continuing their communications, trying to get her to just at least get closer to them. And they're, again, connected to each other through a rope unit, as we've learned through a source. At this point, Jim, Liberty Island shut down, evacuated, which is another just unfathomable thing at this point on July 4th. You can imagine how busy that island is for tourists and others to see the Statue of Liberty on Independence Day. But this is something we're continuing to follow as we hope to see a safe rescue here of this protester.
Okay, CNN's Bryn Gingras. We always like to look at the Statue of Liberty on the 4th of July, but not like this. Thank you very much for that. Keep us updated on how that is developing out there on Liberty Island. Let's get more on the breaking news with CNN's counterterrorism analyst and former CIA counterterrorism official Phil Mudd and CNN Justice correspondent Evan Perez. Evan and Phil, obviously, I mean, this looks like a protester who has some sort of issue with the president's immigration policies. This person apparently was carrying an Abolish ICE T-shirt. But obviously, in a situation like this, Evan, they can't take any chances, and they have to respond to this as if this could be potentially an emergency, a dangerous situation for people out there on the 4th of July.
Right. They have to treat it as if it is a threat, something that could cause harm not only to the person who's up there, but to anybody else. And look, I mean, those police officers who are having to climb up there are putting themselves also in danger just to try to bring this person down. I assume that this is part of a larger protest, and it's not only an inconvenience to all the people, the thousands of people who go there on the 4th of July to celebrate the holiday, but also now, you have to wonder whether you have people who are going to do copycat things at other big locations in New York or elsewhere around the country. I mean, this is the type of thing that happens, and it inspires other people to do equally stupid things, and this is stupid.
We don't want that. And Phil Mudd, I mean, obviously this person, it appears this person has some sort of issue with the president's immigration policy with the Abolish ICE T-shirt, and you don't want to discourage people from expressing their point of view, but this is obviously not the way to do it. What do you do, given your experience in handling protests and potentially, situations where you have protesters who could pose a threat? How do you handle situations like this? Do you try to allow the person to get their point across? I mean, the Statue of Liberty is a symbol to the world that we welcome all immigrants into this country, or at least it used to mean that. Do you let these folks get their point across and then bring them down? What do you do?
Well, in this case, you got to build empathy with the individual. In terms of the views of the people in NYPD, I can guess what they're saying. Excuse me, you just put our officers at risk and destroyed a day for thousands of people and their children. This person needs to spend some time in jail. But in terms of the conversation with the individual, I can assume that they're building empathy with him. We have another clue I think that's really significant, Jim, and that is they talk about another 7 people who were involved in this protest. They're offering a couple of things now. Number one, did they bring anything on that island that suggests it's more than a protest? A backpack you can't explain. The second is I want identities because I want to look at things if I'm an investigator, like their social media profile. Is this it? Or as Evan's suggesting, are there other protests to follow that might be copycat or inspired by this group? I want to make sure this is the end when this person gets off.
And Evan, what do you make of the timing of this protest? Obviously on the 4th of July, this is just a huge mess for the NYPD. They're already on patrol for potentially any kind of threats that maybe develop on, one of our most important holidays of the year.
Right. I mean, look, this is obviously the NYPD has a lot of people who are professionals and who are going to be able to protect the city on a day like this. But it really does, sap the resources of these people who are there, again, to protect the city. There are millions of people who are going to be lining the shores, different parts of the city, to celebrate this day and to watch the fireworks celebration later in the evening. And so that's what the focus of the protection detail that they have, all the plans that NYPD had made, certainly was not made for this, but clearly these people wanted to try to get some attention, and apparently their protest has to do with the immigration policies, and they want to abolish ICE. They've gotten their point across, it appears. But after this, I mean, I think the problem for the NYPD is that they now have to be careful that other people aren't going to try to do other things to try to disrupt. Look, I think they'd rather deal with this than say something that is, a danger to some of the public that's out there waiting for the celebrations later tonight. But this is really, I mean, those officers are in danger. I mean, that's not a good way for anybody to be spending this evening.
And the intense heat there in New York City is something that is going to be a big problem.
They're 150 feet
officers.
Up. That's a long way to fall.
This is certainly a dangerous situation for those officers. But we hope for the best for them. We don't want to dismiss the concerns of these protesters. And people who feel passionately about this immigration issue.
But it almost distracts from that. I mean, Jim,
it does.
The kind of thing it makes their point actually be diminished by the fact that people are trying to.
But it certainly could be taken by opponents of this message and supporters of the president's immigration policy. This could be seized upon as something. Well, here you go. Here are these protesters. They shouldn't be taken seriously. But it is a magnificent sight to see the Statue of Liberty there in the New York Harbor on the 4th of July. Hopefully this will be resolved quickly. Stand by, gentlemen. We have some other breaking news developing right now over in the UK.